All right, so get ready because we're diving deep into the South Dakota State Jackrabbits football program. And let's be honest, it's a program that's in complete turmoil.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it's not just a simple coaching change, you know?
Right.
This is a potential collapse of a program that's been dominant for years.
Exactly. And we've got all sorts of sources here. Official announcements, news articles. Heck, we even have some recruiting intel. This is a front row seat to a program on the verge of falling apart. Will new coach Dan Jackson be able to put this thing back together?
Right.
After losing so many players and coaches. And what will all this chaos mean for SDSU's future in the FCS?
I mean, this really shows just how crazy college football has become, especially at the FCS level.
Absolutely. To understand just how massive this is, we have to rewind a bit. Coach John Stiegelmeier built a real dynasty at SDSU. They made the FCS playoffs for 13 straight years.
Yeah.
Then Jimmy Rogers takes over, wins 3 Missouri Valley Football Conference titles in a row and back-to-back national championships in 2022 and 2023.
You'd think they'd be set for years. But then they lose in the semifinals to North Dakota State. Rogers takes off for Washington State, and it all seems to just implode.
It's like watching a sweater unravel when you pull on a loose thread.
Yeah.
We're talking 29 graduating seniors gone, and then on top of that, at least 24 players, key players hitting the transfer portal, and that's as of January 1st.
That's just an insane number of players. It really shows how big of an impact a coaching change can have, especially when the coach leaves for a bigger program.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's abandoning ship.
And these aren't just random players.
Yeah.
We're talking star receiver, Griffin Wild quarterback, Mark Gronowski. These are guys who made SDSU what it is.
It's not just names on a roster. This
Yeah.
is a huge loss of talent experience, and leadership rebuilding is going to be incredibly tough.
So in comes Dan Jackson. He's got SDSU roots, played for them, was on the coaching staff during their rise. He's also got experience at Northern Illinois Vanderbilt, and most recently, Idaho.
On paper, his resume looks good, but taking over a program in this much trouble is a massive undertaking. It's not just filling a coaching vacancy, it's reviving a program that's lost its way.
And get this, he's about to become the defensive coordinator at New Mexico under former SDSU coach Jason Eck when this opportunity popped up.
So a homecoming with extremely high stakes, how Jackson handles this is crucial. He has to stabilize the roster deal with fans who are used to winning and create his own vision for the program.
And let's not forget the big thing in college football right now, the transfer portal. It's a complete game changer.
Absolutely. It's transformed. Recruiting players have so much power now. It's created a much more dynamic environment.
Players are always looking for stability and opportunities, and when something like this happens with a coaching change, it's like all bets are off. The portal becomes a very appealing option.
The do not contact tag on so many of these players is interesting too. Are they just testing the waters, or have they already decided to leave? It creates so much uncertainty, it's almost impossible to predict what the SDSU roster will look like.
And all this while the incoming recruits who signed back in December are facing a tough choice.
The highly touted recruits,
Right.
3-star cornerback Trillian Sorrell, linebacker Sullivan Schlimgen, who's got offers from other schools. These are guys who could change the program, and now they're thinking twice.
Exactly. With a new coach and all this uncertainty about the future, it wouldn't be surprising if some followed Rogers to Washington State or looked at other options.
This is where you see the ripple effect of the coaching change.
Yeah.
Jackson and his staff are in a race against time to keep these recruits from leaving.
And you know who's watching this all very closely?
Yeah.
Their rivals, USD and NDSU.
Of course, they're probably seeing this as their chance to take advantage of SDSU while they're down both in recruiting and on the field.
It's like sharks smelling blood in the water.
Yeah.
Remember what happened to NDSU last year? Similar coaching change players, unsure about the future. But they kept their core players and made it back to the championship game. Can SDSU do the same thing?
That's the big question. But we can't avoid the controversy surrounding Dan Jackson. Those allegations of anti-Semitic comments he made at Vanderbilt are serious.
Absolutely. We're focused on the coaching change and what it means for the program, but this adds another layer of complexity to his hiring. We can't just ignore it.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out both within the team and in the community. How Jackson deals with this and creates an inclusive environment will be crucial to his success.
Okay, so we've got a program in chaos, a new coach under intense pressure, and a cloud of controversy hanging over everything.
Right.
But let's change gears a bit and talk football.
Right.
Jackson is known as a defensive specialist, right? He coached defensive backs at Vanderbilt and was the defensive coordinator at Idaho.
His defense is definitely a strong point. However, there's one game that stands out, that 52-point loss his Idaho defense had against Montana State in the FCS playoffs.
52 points, that's not good. Is that a sign of things to come or just a fluke? How will his defensive strategies work at SDSU and in the tough Missouri Valley Football Conference?
That's a question we'll dig into more after a quick break. We'll look at Jackson's coaching style, his potential impact, and what the future might hold for SDSU football. So right before the break, we were discussing Dan Jackson's defense and that 52-point game against Montana State.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Makes you wonder if his style will work in the Missouri Valley.
That's the key question. His time at Idaho shows he likes to take risks, lots of blitzes, trying to force turnovers. Remember when he coached defensive backs at Vanderbilt? He developed those players who were known for being physical, instinctive, and making big plays.
So he's not afraid to gamble a little.
Exactly. But like we saw in that Montana State game, that can really backfire. Of course, every game is different. You can't judge everything based on one game.
True.
Yeah.
But it does make you think, will he have to change his style to fit the players at SDSU and the challenges of the MVFC? It's known for being a very physical conference.
Definitely he won't have the same players Rogers had, losing 29 seniors. Many who were vital to those championships really hurts their experience and leadership.
And then there's those 24 players in the transfer portal. Feels like trying to rebuild a house while the foundation is crumbling.
It's a huge challenge for sure. Jackson and his staff need to figure out who they have left, recruit new players, and maybe even look to the transfer portal themselves to fill the gaps.
So, yeah, it's a rebuilding year. But could all this change be a chance for Jackson to make the program his own?
There's always a chance for new ideas and growth when a program goes through a big change like this. Jackson can build his own culture, implement his systems, create a team that reflects him.
So instead of trying to just repeat past success, he can make his own path.
Exactly, if he can get the right players and everyone believes in his vision, SDSU could still be a powerhouse even with all these roster changes. And remember, he's not starting from scratch. He knows the program, the culture, and some of the staff.
Yet knowing all that could give him a big advantage. He can build trust faster and understand what the program's strengths and weaknesses are. But let's be real. Can he actually keep SDSU at the same level of success? At least in the short term. The Missouri Valley is a tough conference, and rivals like USD and NDSU will be looking to take advantage of any weakness.
There's definitely a lot of pressure to win, especially with the legacy he's inheriting. Following legends like John Stiegelmeier and a championship winner like Jimmy Rogers is no easy task. Expectations are high, and people might lose patience quickly if the team starts slow.
So what would be a successful first year for Dan Jackson? Is it just about wins and losses or more about building for the future?
It's a little of both. Winning is important, but expecting a national championship in year one with all these roster changes is unrealistic. The focus should be on creating a strong culture, developing young players, and showing clear improvement.
So maybe being competitive in the MVFC and making the playoffs would be a good rebuilding year.
Exactly. It's about setting realistic goals and building momentum, but we can't forget about the controversy surrounding Jackson's past comments. How much of a problem will that be?
It's a valid concern. This situation needs to be handled carefully and thoughtfully. How Jackson addresses this issue with his team and the public will be critical.
It's a delicate balance. He needs to admit what happened, show he's truly sorry, and clearly explain how he'll create an inclusive and respectful environment within the program.
Actions will speak louder than words here. He has to show a real commitment to creating a positive and inclusive culture.
It's a test of his leadership. Can he bring together a team that might be divided, inspire his players, and create an environment where everyone feels valued and respected if he can? It'll say a lot about his character and his ability to overcome tough times.
This is a really interesting story unfolding right in front of us. We'll be watching to see how Jackson handles all of this and whether he can lead the Jackrabbits back to being a top team.
This goes beyond just winning and losing. It shows the human side of college football. The struggles, the victories, and the complexity of leadership, and this is just the beginning.
Okay, so we've talked about all the craziness at SDSU, the coaching change, players leaving, the controversy surrounding the new coach. But what does it all mean when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture?
Well, SDSU's problems are kind of a sign of what's happening all over college football, especially in the FCS.
Like a perfect storm, right?
Yeah, exactly. You've got the transfer portal giving players more freedom than ever before, bigger schools offering more money with NIL deals, and this constant pressure to win it. It seems like loyalty and stability are going out the window. It makes things very unpredictable. Coaches are always changing teams, players are following them, and the balance of power is always shifting.
So how do schools like SDSU, who have worked so hard to become national contenders, how do they survive in this new world?
That's the big question. They have to find creative ways to keep their best players, develop young talent quickly, and compete with schools that might have more money or attention.
It's not just about the game anymore. Coaches need to be amazing recruiters, build strong relationships, and even manage the team's brand to succeed in this new landscape.
They need to sell a vision, a culture, a feeling of belonging. They have to convince players who have so many choices that their school is the best choice.
And what about the fans? How do they deal with all this change? It must be tough to feel like your team could fall apart any minute because of a coaching change or players transferring.
It's definitely hard. There's this longing for the old days when players stayed with one team their whole career, building a legacy and a deep connection with the fans and the community.
Yeah, those days seem to be gone. So how do schools like SDSU create that same sense of loyalty and connection now?
It starts with building a strong base, a culture of excellence, a dedication to helping players get better, and an environment where players feel valued and supported on and off the field.
So show them that SDSU isn't just a temporary stop. It's a place where they can grow, improve, and reach their full potential.
Exactly. It's about creating a program that players want to be a part of, even with all the other options out there. And it's about keeping the fans involved, letting them know what's going on, and reminding them that even though people come and go, the spirit and identity of the program stay the same.
So what do you think? Can SDSU come back from all this and become a top team in the FCS again?
Only time will tell, but this will be a really interesting story to watch. Dan Jackson and the SDSU Jackrabbits are at a crossroads. The decisions made in the next few months will decide the future of the program.
This whole situation shows the challenges and opportunities facing college football teams everywhere. It reminds us that things are always changing, and being able to adapt is crucial for survival. What will happen to schools like SDSU in the future? That's something for all of us to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of college football.